Hey, Donald, for a change, how would you like to lead the pledge?
I like that.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, now, we're supposed to be having a presentation for the Garden Festival. Ah, very good. Gary Lazaro?
Gary Lazaro, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity tonight to be able to at least give you an awareness, if you didn't have one, about our Webster Garlic Festival. It is the second annual one. We started last year, and we were at the Fireman's Field. And if any of you remember, it rained for 2 solid days. We were blessed to have 2,500 people come through the turnstiles and pay $5 a head. And therefore we were able to donate to the Miracle Field $12,500 from that. We decided this year, even though lightning's not supposed to strike twice, we might want to think about maybe a little protection and have something indoors, and therefore we'll be down at Parks and Rec, Chiota Drive. We have inside, we actually have them all filled. They've been filled for a while. In the gym area, there will be 50 booths. Most of them are craft vendors. Outside, we will have the remaining balance of well over 80 vendors. Obviously, our food vendors have to be outside doing their cooking, and we have garlic vendors. And there will be some craft vendors that were so daring enough to want to be out, which is great. So hopefully we have a nice sunny day and we don't have to worry about that, but it does offer us that protection. The main thing, obviously, that drew all of us into this started out a year ago as a coalition between Webster Lions, Rotary, and Kiwanis. And because no one club could do this alone. And we found that out last year. That was, we put hundreds and hundreds of hours into this. But it was very successful, and we got very good ratings from the garlic festival, craft vendors, food vendors, garlic vendors who travel and do this all over the state and elsewhere. And so, but the main thing that drove us last year was that we had a concept, and it was for Challenger Miracle Field. The question was, at that point in time, estimates were $850,000 to $1.2 million. They're now at $2 million. And so, the question is, how do you possibly raise this kind of money? Well, anyone who was at the groundbreaking ceremony a short time ago, there's well over $700,000. We've actually had another grant came in for $75,000 the other day, and we've got another one right behind it. So we're well on our way. They are actually ready to start to do construction on that field. That will be just northeast of the town hall. So they're shuffling some fields around to make this space for this spot. So it can be functioning, and it is. It's a field that is designed to be very safe. It is a rubberized field, but they've done a lot of homework on this to make sure that it's a safe rubber field. And drainage is excellent, so you can have torrential downpours you'll be playing on there within a very, very short period of time. Some say 20 minutes, and you can be on it. Primarily, to be honest with you, when I was asked to come on board as a vice chairman, I said, well, my first question is going to be, who's going to use this field? And once I went to the first meeting and found out that there are over 10,000 challenged kids today that can use this field, and young adults, and adults. And as soon as I heard that, I said, okay, we're ready to go. And so each of us went back to our respective clubs, and this is how we started to talk about the Miracle Field. So this year, one of our primary recipients is going to be the Challenger Miracle Field again. There are others, but they are the primary beneficiary. So this year, we're going to have a nice mix between the 50 vendors, as I mentioned, inside. And there's going to be 30, 35 as of this morning's meeting, at least 35 outside. The alpacas are going to come back and join us this year. We'll have some music outside. Unbelievable food. If anybody went to it last year, anything you can dream of is there and is good. Garlic vendors who will show you how to cook with garlic, show you the benefits of garlic, and also how to grow it. So it makes a very big difference when this gets that kind of coverage and exposure. So when I was at the groundbreaking ceremony, Mayor Cato came up to me and said, "How can we help?" And I said, "Well, the success of these events we have learned is how well you promote the product. And other festivals have told us, and we've seen other festivals fall, so this was very challenging for us. And how they fell was because they did not advertise well. So that's basically what I'm asking for tonight. And I told John that also, and I said, we've got flyers and posters. Josette's been very good about that, thank you. And so I have some more. I will leave those for you. There are 2 of them, so don't be bashful. And to describe the event takes place very soon. It'll be Saturday, September 10, Sunday, September 11, at the rec center. And Saturday opens from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., Sunday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then I also have, in addition to that, and these are probably the things that are going to be, I hope, the simplest thing for everybody to promote this, is basically just hand them to a family friend, a business partner, a co-worker, get them excited. I handed out over 150 of them myself last year. I was surprised how many people did show up. That's probably why we still ended up with 2,500 people, even though everybody was under umbrellas. So that's basically what I'm here to say. Obviously, it's a great cause. We hope that we have all sunshine, but at least this year we've done something to help protect ourselves in case it doesn't work out that way. So we should be able to accommodate a lot of people and have coverage for them, et cetera.
Thank you very much. I was at the
You're welcome.
one last year, and even with the rain, I don't know, I bought a few things and had a lot of fun.
Good.
Because I go to the Fox Run one, the big garlic festival that they have, and many of their vendors were there.
Yeah.
So that tells you that this is a good.
We handed out, because we had so many shirts left over last year from the lack of attendance, we went around and actually gave them to the various vendors. They wore them the next week to Cuba. And in Cuba, they're like, "What's this?" And Cuba's ranked like number 11 on the list of the state garlic festivals. And the people in Cuba said, when we were all done, they said, "You guys keep this up, within a couple of years, you will overtake Cuba on the list." So it's a lot of hard work. We seriously put tons of hours in this thing, but the purpose is real and it's needed. And so I think, to be truthful with you, I heard some rumblings that not too far away from here, when they found out what we were doing, that they are going to consider something. So I think something will happen, to be honest with you. There's going to be the need for it, so there'll be plenty for everybody, which will be great. Okay? Any other questions?
May I have a question? How about entertainment? Has that been finalized?
We have, as of this morning, I heard, we have like 4 bands coming in, but we can always use more.
Who's in charge of that?
There's actually 2 people involved.
We can talk about this later on.
And Robin Whitaker is one from Rotary.
Wow.
And so we can certainly use more. That was one of the things that was said this morning, was we're going to have some voice. Last year we had like 8 bands. it's like anything else with these type of things. Everybody signs up the first year and says, yep, I'll do that for nothing for you. This year they come back and say, well, we need several $100s for us to appear. The problem is, what we're trying to do is cut that fine line between, can we pay you a little, because we want to make sure we deliver the most we possibly can to the Miracle Field and to the other beneficiaries. So certainly, if we could talk about that, that'd be great.
You're gonna wanna update your website.
Yeah,
Because it still has last year's entertainment schedule on there.
You know, this morning, I brought that up again. And I said, we need to do something about that website. And they assured me, yep, we're gonna work on that. So I will actually send an email out tonight when I get back.
very good.
So, but thank you, I appreciate the input. But anybody who knows anyone that's willing to play some music for us, that'd be very, very welcome. Just nice to have on the field, you know. The music is actually, we're hoping that we talked with Parks and Rec, and we're hoping that we can get the 20 by 40 tent set up in the center of that field where we're gonna be. And then the music could be in park. Well, then that brought on the question of, well, the alpacas are down there, are they okay with the music? So we made contact with them today, and basically, the alpacas are okay with it. The fellow that runs all of this said, I just want to make sure that I can be able to talk to people to sell them all of our wares, because if you were there last year, you saw that huge store.
Yes.
My wife bought one of those alpaca hats,
Yes.
they're incredible. That was incredible, but they've got all kinds of other things too. But yeah, so very good. It was all good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks, I appreciate your time. Would you like me to leave these with you, Judy?
Sure.
Okay? And don't hesitate to take these cards, because
I know.
that's what they're here for.
Yeah, very
Okay?
good.
Thank you. Hope to see you there.
I'll be there. Okay, next is a public hearing for the adoption of local law number 2 for 2016 to establish no parking areas on Sherwood Avenue and Sanford during certain events. Obviously, I don't see anyone here. So do we want to just have a discussion between the three of us and determine, take like 5 minutes? Because we've already talked about it, and we know how we feel about it, so
Yeah, because we proposed this one on and on.
way back, yeah. And we want to get it done before school starts. Well, we can if there's no
You have to
here.
open and close the public hearing.
Yeah.
Huh?
You'll have to open and close the public hearing.
I know.
So, yeah, we should open it. Yeah, but we gotta open it.
We gotta have to open the public hearing.
I don't.
Yeah, so you just say, anyone wish to speak, the public hearing is open.
Yeah, I kind of get it without saying, yeah. And obviously.
If nobody comes forward, you can then close the public hearing.
Okay, public hearing is closed.
There you go.
Thanks, Tom.
So do we have to read this, Don?
Read what?
Wait,
The entire, the
Yeah.
entire resolution?
Since
No, you don't really have to, you should
we should
A
read,
couple of them.
read the,
just the proposed, the notice.
right.
Yeah.
Alright.
That's
So notice is hereby given that there has been duly introduced at a meeting of the Village Board of Trustees of the Village of Webster held on August 11, 2016, is a proposed local law number 2 of 2016 entitled "The Establishment of No Parking Areas Upon Sherwood Avenue and Sanford Street During Certain Events." And notice is further given that the Village Board of Trustees of the Village of Webster will conduct a public hearing on the aforesaid proposed local law at the Community Meeting Room, 29 South Ave, Webster, New York, on August 25th, which is tonight, 2016, at 7:30 p.m. or soon thereafter. There is public hearing shall be convened, in which time all persons interested will be heard. This proposed local law seeks to establish no parking areas along Sherwood Ave during the sporting events at Spry Middle School and during the annual Webster Fireman's Carnival, along Sanford Street during the annual Webster Fireman's Carnival. Please take further notice that all interested persons will be given an opportunity to be heard on said proposed local law. At this place in time, copies of local law describing the law are on file at the office of the village clerk, Village of Webster, when the same available public inspection during regular office hours.
Local law will be effective October 1st.
So, you entertain.
We can just make a motion. I'll make that a motion to approve this local law number 2 for 2016.
They'll ask for the motion, I'll make that motion.
I'll second. It's okay.
Trustee Alito?
Aye.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Motion passes.
And just for the record, in the resolution, that it's a type 2 action under seeker, so no environmental review is required.
Oh, okay. It's not in there. Okay, yes. Open it up for comments and questions.
The only thing, just getting back to that local law.
Oh,
When I talked to Jake, we made it, he decided on October 1st to give him
Yeah.
time to make signs and to post the signs.
Right.
Because it shouldn't be effective until the signs are up.
all right, that's good to know.
So public comment?
10-1.
Peter Alder, 59 Gunning Avenue.
We recognize you.
You do? Anyway, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. This one's really short tonight. I just have a concern I want to bring to your attention about item 5 on the agenda regarding asking the zoning board for determination regarding whether the village is exempt from local zoning with regards to the cell tower. And doing a little research, and it's actually in the resolution, the governing case appears to be a matter of County of Monroe versus the City of Rochester, which is a very interesting case if you like that kind of thing. In that decision, there were 9 factors cited to determine whether or not it is in the public's interest to subject the government to land use regulations. And these 9 areas are the nature and scope of the instrumentality seeking immunity, the encroaching government's legislative grant of authority, the kind of function or land use involved, the effect local land use regulation would have upon the enterprise concerned, alternative locations for the facility in less restrictive zoning areas, the impact upon legitimate local interests, alternative methods of providing the proposed improvement, the extent of the public interest to be served by the improvements, and intergovernmental participation in the project development process and an opportunity to be heard. Actually, one thing about this is the board doesn't have to refer to this to the zoning board at all, and I would ask you to consider not doing so. The 5 of you are more than capable of making a determination on these issues. Some of these issues are squarely on your shoulders, such as the alternative methods to providing for the proposed improvement. Do you know the zoning issues that you might be exempted from? Isn't it important that you and the public know what variances, if any, you are seeking from the village code? The most transparent way of erecting the cell tower is to involve the public, especially the neighbors who are adjacent to it. The zoning board might be a good place to seek a special use permit if there are zoning issues that need addressing. But this board, the community's elected representatives, should make the determination of those 9 factors and hold a public forum, I'm not sure a public hearing is necessary, but a public forum, and provide notice for public input. This is a big issue, and it's a big tower. So I urge you to keep the decision-making in your own hands, keep the public informed, and make good findings on those 9 factors. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question, Peter?
Yeah, go ahead. You're going to ask
Since
me a
you're big
question?
on, since you're big on transparency and everything, don't you think, so it's this board that actually has the say-so as to whether to do the cell tower in the first place. And now you want the same board that actually is the proponent of the activity to decide whether or not it should be exempt from zoning?
Absolutely, because they have
Don't
the
you see an
correct.
apparent conflict there, and why shouldn't the zoning board do that?
Actually, I actually think it's a lack of conflict because it places the responsibility of making the determination on the board that's going to make the decision, rather than foisting it on another board that is
Not
actually.
forced to get on them.
Well, and they don't have to do it, so it is. Although I don't want to quibble with you about one word, but whatever word you like to use, we'll use your word. But, I mean, the point is that it's being put at the zoning board level. It doesn't need to be, and this board can, in fact, legally make the interpretations on those 9 factors. And I think from a transparency perspective, although I don't necessarily know if this rises to the level of a public hearing, there were suggestions in the literature that other communities actually hold actual public hearings, which will allow the public to make that, they actually have a lot of input into the decision-making process, which I think they should, because you're talking about a 190-foot, is that right? Something like that, tower that's going to rise in their neighborhoods where there's never been one before, and a piece of land that's been open since 1960. What is that? 50 years? Almost 60? So I think it is an important subject that people should have input on. That's all.
You could have a public hearing in front of the zoning board.
You could. I'm not saying, and what I'm saying is that this board being the elected representatives is the place to put it. That's all.
Well, we could bring this up at the next workshop.
We can agree to disagree. I mean, it's just a matter of, I think, that's all. And it does mention in the literature that zoning boards can be used. I'm not saying they can't be. I'm just saying they don't have to be.
What would the reasons be for not involving them?
Well, I think that if you, again, I'm just reading the literature. He's the lawyer, but I think if you read if you read the literature, what happens is that if there are variances to be given, the municipality can actually apparently go through the process as if you were any sort of applicant. And so if there are variances, and I'm not aware of which ones they are, you probably are, then you would send those particular variances to the zoning board, but you wouldn't actually make the ultimate determination, but you would make the determination as to the 9 points involved. And I think the actual term they use is, Don, what is that term? It's community something. It's government immunity to zoning based on balancing of public interests, and that's what you would be looking at.
The whole point is, that if, be it this board or the zoning board, if they determine that the erection of a cell tower by the village is of sufficient public interest, looking at those 9 factors, then you don't need any variances. That's the whole point of it. So then you don't send anything to the zoning board for variances, because you've now said you don't have to abide by the local zoning ordinance. That's
Right.
the whole point.
I got it, right.
It's immune, but you seem to be saying, well, you could make the determination and still send the stuff to the zoning board for variances, but that's not the way it would work.
Okay. They talk in the law about the special use permits, so that could be granted to the municipality by its own zoning board.
That's only if your zoning ordinance provided for that.
Okay.
Either, the choice is either you pretend you're no different than Verizon Wireless erecting a cell tower, and you gotta go through the whole approval process just like Verizon was.
Right.
Or you have a hearing, whether it's in front of this board or the zoning board, to determine whether the limited governmental immunity from zoning should apply.
Right.
And if you're immune from zoning, then that's it.
Okay.
You don't,
But the reason I actually seized on this and brought it up at all is because the agenda item doesn't actually give this board the option of keeping it in front of them.
If you don't pass the resolution, then it's not going to the zoning board, then they can decide that it can go somewhere else.
But it doesn't really say that on there that that's the option. It doesn't say the board to consider the option of, again, I hope we're not parsing words, but I think.
I think you are.
All right.
So they could decide to send it to the Historic Preservation Commission to have them determine it, I suppose.
Oh, boy.
What do you think about that?
That would seem an odd place to put it. But.
Well, it would, but, so I'm being a little facetious there, but you basically
That's
got
what
3
you-
boards. You got the planning board, the zoning board, and the board of trustees.
Right. And
And it seems most appropriate, since the zoning board's expertise is the zoning ordinance, that they should be the ones to determine whether or not this particular project of the village should be immune from zoning or not. They're the ones that should be more familiar than this board with variances, the rationale and the grounds for granting a variance or not, all that, because that's what they do all the time.
Right, but this board is, well, I'm not gonna go back to my arguments, I made them already, so that's all right. Okay.
You don't get a vote.
I don't, you're right. But neither do you.
That's true.
Either do you.
Do we have anyone else who would like to speak?
Eric Reynolds. So we've heard on and on about executive meetings concerning pending litigation. Is there currently any pending litigation? Is there a lawsuit against the village that is currently active?
I would defer that to Don.
Well,
Exactly.
what, do you have, can you be a little more specific?
Litigation.
What, you want to know whether there's any lawsuits that pending against the village, no matter what
So
kind?
I guess concerning the water treatment plant,
Sewer.
the sewer plant.
Yes, there is.
Okay. And so what we've done is we've done away with being able to do the composting there. And I assume that the litigation is by the Cons and et al. From across the street there. So we did away with our ability to compost our leaves and everything, which cost us a significant amount of money. And that was supposedly to stem this lawsuit. So now we're actually spending double as residents because of that. Because we didn't look into the repercussions and whether or not there was actually anything wrong going on there. We just said, okay, we're not gonna do it anymore. I find that irresponsible. I really do, because we're getting sued anyways. I think we should go back to composting. Save that $40,000 or whatever it was. I believe that was about the cost of it. Because it's gonna cost us both ways. And as far as the cell tower, I strongly request that you consider the implications that erecting that sort of structure will have on the property values of the surrounding residents around that tower. A water tower is one thing, a cell tower is
I
something
think
different.
that's even less.
A water tower is definitely less.
The water towers are huge. Cell towers. are
Right,
usually
but they're much taller and they're much uglier. And the other thing you need to consider is, they moved in there next to a water tower.
There's,
They didn't move
that's
in-
the point
they
right
moved
there.
Next to a cell tower.
That's the point.
Well, yeah, but we made it into a cell tower.
But it was that's very innocuous. Adding a antenna onto a water tower is very innocuous compared to building a cell tower.
I don't know, have you looked at some of the cell towers that have been built?
I
mean,
have.
They're tall, skinny things that, I mean, there's.
Not the ones
air.
that are 190 feet tall. Those are typically.
Is that what we're looking at?
Yes. The ones that are 190 feet tall typically
Huh?
are erector set style.
But they're airier. I mean, I'm looking at these and these water tanks have been there my entire life. And I love them, but they're big, they're huge.
Sure.
And I think these are, I mean, I've looked at some of them, that's why I'm
And
saying.
so I'm not telling you that, not to put one in.
Yeah.
But I'm requesting
Look at
that you
Yeah.
look at all the options and, you know, if you decide to put one in, to put in the least obnoxious looking one. That, you know, allows the people to keep some of their land value. That's all I'm.
We,
Thank you.
that's a good one.
You can make them look like trees.
Oh, terrible.
You can make them look like, the tree ones look bad?
Yeah.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to comment? Okay, we'll close that part. And let's get on to village business. And I gotta find it.
Minutes.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, village board meeting minutes. Any comments, any questions? Did you find them?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're good. This is for the village meeting workshop on
Yeah.
August 2nd. Yeah, I have no questions.
Okay. Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
That's for motion.
Make motion, well, we do it for both of them, or just do it, no, we'll do it for. Just make the motion to approve these minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Yes. I'll second.
Trustee Alito?
Aye.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Then we have the village board meeting minutes of August 11th.
Yes. Those are, any comments, questions?
All good.
Okay, I'll make that motion to approve those.
I'll ask for a motion, I will make that motion.
I'll second.
All right?
Trustee Alito?
Aye.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Yeah, I didn't plan on being in this
June, you're
position
doing
because
just fine.
nobody said anything.
You're
Well,
doing,
that's good, well, the person to your right's was supposed to.
you're doing just fine.
Oh, was
That's
he
why-
really supposed to? Because nobody told me.
That's why I'm helping you. So you and Al reviewed the bills, correct?
I did, yes, I did, and the questions I had got answered, so I'm good. Okay, ask for a motion then to pay the bills.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Trustee Alito?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, so we have an authorization for Mayor Cahill to sign the annual software support and maintenance
Right.
contract with Williams Law Book Company for building and code enforcement at a rate of $600. Will told me today that that was not needed.
Huh?
It's a good thing.
I'm
we're
glad
not
you paid
on
attention,
TV.
Will.
I pictured it.
How's the movie?
I'm listening to the voices in my head. They're speaking in Latin though, so as soon as I learn Latin, we're gonna party.
So this obviously is something for
Write
you,
it down.
I didn't even know about this, actually.
Oh, you did?
Tell them what you use the software for. Oh, it's just our permit software up there. That's what it is.
There
It's
you
for
go.
permits for violations. It covers everything. It's an excellent, probably the best software we've ever had. Very, very easy to navigate. And it's also excellent for keeping records so that when we are audited, if we ever get audited, it comes in handy.
All right, so then let's,
I'll make a motion.
yeah, that's for a motion.
Authorize Mayor Cahill to sign off on that.
All right, I'll make that motion.
I'll second it then.
Trustee Alito?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Motion passes.
So you have it for him to sign tomorrow? You're the best. All right, moving along, right, June, authorization for Mayor Cahill to sign the intermunicipal agreement between the Village of Webster and the Town of Ontario for shared services through May 31st, 2021.
So this was in front of you The last meeting?
Last meeting.
So the change was just at that paragraph 3,
Yes, yes.
where
Yes.
it now says money or payments in money or money's worth measured by the hours worked at the established rates for the operator
Yep.
and cost of materials and fuels. And now there's some guidelines for how they come up with it.
That was much better.
Although
Yeah.
Jake tells me that the town of Ontario and most all the municipalities in Wayne County, they like the money's worth thing. They barter everything.
They
So
do.
you'll probably never see a bill from the town of Ontario or vice versa.
We never have. Seriously. We don't do it.
All right. So can I ask for a motion for Mr. Cahill to sign the agreement between the Village of Webster and the Town of Ontario?
Make a motion.
No, second, yes.
Trustee Belkane?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Trustee Alito?
Aye.
Motion passes.
So then we come up to number 5, right?
Yeah.
So, resolution to refer the Village of Webster Zoning Board of Appeals for determination regarding whether or not the construction of a cellular telephone tower by the Village of Webster at 1075 Webster Road should be exempt from local zone regulations. So, what do you guys want to do? You want to discuss this further with John and Darrell present? Do you want to bring it to a workshop?
Well, we could bring it to a workshop.
Yeah, the
if we
workshop
want
is
to.
Tuesday, so it's.
Right, exactly, it's just Tuesday.
Yeah.
But you,
It-
well,
What do
unless
you
you
think?
I do
unless you
even
want to take
need
a
to.
resolution on Tuesday,
Well, you can,
huh?
yeah.
At the workshop?
Yeah, you can do it.
I don't even know.
What's your take, Don?
Well, he thinks they're better
Well,
fitted to.
Right.
This project is on a pretty tight timeline.
It is.
And as it
Yeah.
is, you're going to have to work with the Monroe County Water Authority for some additional time. So
When,
I suppose there's time. The plan was if this went to the zoning board, that it would get on their October agenda, and they have to advertise, for that. I think they meet October 6th.
Yeah, whatever. The
we can't do this.
third Thursday of the month.
And
I mean, it takes too long. This is the wrong kind of year.
and again, Peter obviously has a different opinion, but in my view, I think,
He doesn't
Comma,
vote.
however.
well, I think, to me, you're the board that's proposing the cell tower.
Right.
You've got a built-in bias in favor of putting that cell tower up, I'm assuming.
Right.
And so why should you be the same board to decide whether or not you're subject to zoning or not? Because if I'm you and I've got this bias, I'm gonna say, back with zoning,
Yeah,
we're not
Do it.
gonna, let's just put the sucker up.
Yeah.
Whereas when you go to the zoning board, they don't have any skin in the game. They shouldn't care one way or the other,
No, I-
whether this cell tower
Yeah,
gets
I do
built or
agree.
not.
I
And then
agree with
and
that.
in my view, they could take the more objective look as to whether or not that public interest test is met, that public balancing of the public interest. So that's why my
Yeah.
thought, and we discussed this at a meeting at which Darrell and the mayor attended, and they agreed, and that's why it was suggested
Yeah.
the resolution go this way. Obviously, if you guys want further discussion, that's your prerogative.
Will the zoning board hold a public hearing?
Yeah, well, if the resolution as written says, determination to be subject to a public hearing to be held at the zoning board of appeals meeting, actually, we were gonna do this in the September meeting.
I can't read it, but that's okay.
So, no, I understand what you're saying, if this board was split or not in
Yeah.
favor of.
Well,
you know, but
we're pretty
we're all
solid
pretty
on.
much solid behind to mean something here, so I don't think it would make a difference if we change it to Tuesday. if that's-
And we're also going to be mailing out a notice to all
Right,
residents
exactly.
within 500 feet, just so you're aware. It's all prepared, it just needs to be mailed out that week when it's closer to the hearing.
Yeah.
But I'm also in favor of the zoning board. doing
Yeah,
it,
so
period. So that's-
when Will and I and the mayor and Darrell and Jake was there, when we discussed all this, we said, let's treat it, even though it's not an application for a variance, you could use that word that you're actually asking for a type of variance from the entire zoning code.
Mhm.
So let's treat it notice-wise the same as any other variance application that anybody else would have to make.
Okay.
And so normally they send out letters to nearby property owners, so we
Yeah.
drafted a letter, it's gonna go out, it's gonna be subject to a public hearing. So,
I think
and
that's
that was
good.
another,
All right.
and that's
Yeah,
another
that's
reason
good.
why we thought the zoning board was the most appropriate body to do this, because they deal with variances all the time.
All right, so I'm gonna ask for a resolution,
Yep.
and I also would like to include in that we do a public zoning board as a public hearing, so I'll make sure that we can tell John here on that.
But it's in the proposed resolution, the very last sentence.
I kind of missed that.
All right, so I'll make a resolution, ask for a resolution to refer the Village of Webster Zoning Board of Appeals for determination regarding whether or not the construction of a cellular telephone tower by the Village of Webster, 1065 Webster Road should be exempt from local zoning regulations.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Belkane,
Aye.
trustee Lancy, trustee Polito,
Aye.
motion passes.
And for the members of the audience, the resolution says that it's going to be subject to a public hearing at the zoning board of appeals meeting on September 15, 2016.
September 15th.
That's why
Yeah.
they wanted, and then depending on it all depends on what the zoning board does. The zoning board could say, no, you got to go through the regular process, in which case
Yeah.
there's at a minimum a height variance that's going to be required. But notwithstanding whatever the zoning board decides, the thought is that the project is going to go to the planning board for a concept review. The planning board wouldn't have any, approval authority or whatever, but we thought it was a good idea to run it by the planning board, to get their thoughts on aesthetics and that kind of thing.
Can I also just address the height issue real quick? The reason why it has to be high is because it has to be higher than the tanks.
Yep.
Because what you have
Well, I
is,
was just gonna ask, what
It's gotta be-
is
it's
the
gotta
height
be-
of the tanks?
the height of the tanks are at least 150, I can't remember the
Okay,
total.
that's-
The tower, the top of the tower is going to be about 40 feet taller
Well, okay.
than the tank, but you got to get above the tank, otherwise you can't get 360 degrees.
Right.
coverage.
Are we ever taking them down?
The big tank is going to stay, the north tank is going to stay there, the south tank, ultimately, the water authority is going to take down at some point.
At some point?
Maybe.
Did they declare that they were going to do that?
But
They're
it's in the
supposed-
lea- It's in the lease that they can.
Yeah, but they're supposed to make a declaration. I think it's section something rather towards the end.
They
There's-
haven't officially said it.
Okay,
They've just said that that tank isn't necessary to the
Okay.
water delivery system, distribution system.
Moving on.
Moving on, you're up, Don.
Done.
I got nothing.
Oh, you're so easy.
It wasn't easy last week, you just all over, Will.
Well, that's okay.
Okay, Josette's up.
Yes. Financials, did anybody have any questions?
No, I didn't, so. Already talked to everybody.
You did?
Well, then-
That's good.
Yeah.
All right, so nobody has any questions?
Yep.
Will?
My turn. Well, after Tuesday night's meeting and much therapy, I've taken some public speaking classes. I'm reading at 6th grade level now, so I'm working my way up. You had to be here. Okay. So basically, I'll just highlight a few things from the report if I may. We had about 10 permits last month. The one thing I would like to highlight is the under complaints and violation, the very first one for 28 Seneca Street. One of the things I am aware of is the value of property when it comes to living next to another property that doesn't maintain itself. And this became perfectly clear this week, or actually last month, when a gentleman came into my office pointing out that his neighbor wasn't mowing their lawn. So I visited the site, and you cannot see it from the road. So I had to ask him permission to enter his property, which he gave me, and then I could see the backyard, which was, the weeds are almost as tall as I am. And so what we normally do is we send a letter out. In this particular case, when it comes to grass notices, we try and funnel them through, we do funnel them through Megan. And what Megan does is she sends a letter out, and then she puts it on a spreadsheet, and then sends a note to, or an email to Fritz. That way, everything is all taken care of through one person, and it gets it done. And of course, you're aware that the cost for our employees to enter the property is $300 to maintain their property. So, but in this particular case, the reason I bring this up is because the gentleman is selling his house. And the people were coming to the house and they were saying, and this is, he showed me an email, so this isn't hearsay. People were coming to the house, they were saying they love the house, but as soon as they went in the backyard and saw the neighbor's yard, they said, oh, forget this, I'm not gonna live next door to that. So,
Understandable.
and what ends up happening is, you have to reduce the price of the house in order to sell it. Okay? So now he's saying, should I spend the money to put up a fence? But we ended up going over there because we did send a letter, and then the lady called and said she had some concerns, so we gave her a week extension. Nothing happened, so then we ended up going on the property and taking care of it. Unfortunately, when we did mow, we found out there was a bunch of stuff under that had not been taken care of. So now we have to address that, the cleaning up of the property, junk and garbage and things like that. So, yeah, so that's fun. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about? Oftentimes I get complaints from residents, and it's something like, you know, my faucet is not being taken care of, or I'm having a problem with a breaker. Could you just take a look at it because the landlord's not doing anything? And the first thing I do is I ask them if they notified the landlord with a letter, made a copy of the letter. There's a whole system, okay? And 9 out of 10 times, if I go there, there's a gazillion violations that I find. In this particular case, under legal, 79 South Avenue was one of those properties that just had a million things that needed to be done. But thankfully, the owner did contact me, and he's beginning to do work on the property and fixing all the violations that I found, so thank goodness. Jim Cook, 137 Donovan Street. You know that we've been dealing with the whole fence requirement thing. A little history behind that. Most of you know it used to be Elmer's Junkyard. Some of you youngins don't know that. But it was a mess.
Looking at you.
Yeah. Sure. And then Jim took it over, cleaned it up a bit, but he still had an area where he kept the frames of the cars. And back in that day, you know, you could get rid of a Corvette really quick, and that's where he started to really grow the business. Well, after a while of neglect and everything, it began to look like an eyesore. Now, none of us knew that there was a fence requirement according to General Municipal Law 136, because everybody said, and even my predecessor said to me, it's pre-existing non-conforming. We're like, okay, you know. So, but then we did the investigation at the request of a few individuals, and come to find out, the pre-existing non-conforming applies to zoning. So in other words, even though General Industrial says right in there, no junkyards, he's pre-existing non-conforming, and he can maintain that as long as he maintains his seller's license. However, according to General Municipal Law 136, if we don't have a specific zoning for junkyards, which we don't, General Municipal Law 136 applies. And in General Municipal Law, there is a fence requirement. There has always been a fence requirement. So even if you're pre-existing non-conforming to the law and everything like that, you know, prior to the law, this still applies. So this is what we went after. We ended up going to court. We had to reschedule because there was a conflict of interest with Judge Corritore, and so we're going to be seeing Judge DeSalvo, but we have to bump it to October because Judge DeSalvo decided to take a vacation on us. So we'll be going back. However, if you go down Donovan Street, you'll notice all the cars have been removed from the other area. They're all in a centralized location. It almost looks like a park now. They've mowed it and taken care of it, no, believe me. And I kept trying to encourage Mr. Guck that, you know, if he cleans this place up, the other property that he has might actually sell, or, you know, someone might be more interested in doing something with that without having to look at the vehicle. So it's cleaned up, and now the fence should be in soon. So we're doing good there. On a good note, the old Bauman building there on East Main Street.
Which building are you talking about? What's the old Bauman building?
Yeah, well, we all know that anyway. I'm trying to think of the addresses. It's like 31 through 40 or something like that, or 28 to 40, East Main Street.
Okay, they're right up on the main street.
Yeah, the one that looked
Not
like
the ones
a
behind.
Western cowboy set there with all of
Yeah.
it. The gentleman is working on the interior, demolishing it. He's going to be coming to me with the plans for what he wants to do with the build out. They've already got some tenants lined up, which I'm excited about. One that we're familiar with, but I can't say for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
However, Streppa's, the old Streppa's is being remodeled and getting ready for a wonderful tenant. So we're hoping they move in soon. The other thing I want to bring up, which lastly, may or may not be my responsibility to bring this up, but I'll bring it up anyway. And it was requested that I talk about it. In our code, in the sign code, at the very end under temporary signs, it addresses the selling of items outside of the businesses. It's not allowed unless planning board approval. So just like a sign, you know, when you're selling something outside, it's like you're advertising for your store, so they treat it under temporary signs for that particular reason, I'm assuming, historically. And so I had to actually tell somebody to move their wares inside their store, and they weren't happy about it, but I had to show them the code and explain to them why. So the reason I bring it up is I don't know if the board would entertain addressing this or readdressing the law that we have, or somehow making it possible or making it easier for business owners to have sidewalk sales or something like that, where it could be out in the open public, you know, as long as it obviously doesn't interrupt traffic flow on the sidewalk. But, and the reason I bring it up is I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but we know that the business owners pay the lion's share of the taxes.
Yeah.
And anything we do to help them promote businesses is only in theirs and our best interest.
I'm in favor of doing that, but I'll also just be careful, like, what it says, because you could also throw a bunch of stuff outside and people come through the village and it looks like, you know.
Terrible.
Oh, no,
Why
I
not just get
agree.
a permit?
Yeah, the junk, yeah, maybe, that's right.
Just a permit, yeah.
And that's why, you know, something like that would be an inexpensive permit, so it wouldn't be a burden on them.
Yeah.
And it would allow us to have some control.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think our code enforcement officials should draft some proposed local law.
Oh, man, you sound right.
Well, like, isn't there seasonal display?
Well,
there?
other municipalities must have something similar.
Well, that's why I had to
Some kind of a
look.
permitting process.
Oh, sure, and you're absolutely
Rather
right.
than,
That's why he was
it's too
seeking
cumbersome
this-
to go in front of the planning board.
Well,
It
absolutely,
should
no.
be just an internal permitting kind of thing. Give us
The workshop for Tuesday.
There's only two things in there. Like,
And I'll do one more. If you want me to play Jake's Swing next.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
I don't know as many words as he does, so. I had complaints regarding 58 Lapham Park, where Diane Herbst used to live, God rest her soul. And the complaints came in the form of possibly too many occupants in the particular home. The home itself is legally registered in the assessing department as a single-family home with an apartment. So it's in a single-family area. So technically, it would be pre-existing non-conforming. We'd like to use that term. So what I did is I drafted a letter, and all I did was ask the resident who lives there, the owner lives there, if they could clarify some things for me. That's all. Tell me, could you please tell me how many people are living there? And, what is the use? Is it transient or is it permanent living? And so on. And I received a letter back from the resident basically stating, no, nobody's transient, that it's someone living with her and then her nephew. So there's basically 3 people living in the home. They have 4 cars, but they only use 3 of them. One of them is going to be going in the garage. But, you know, the complaint was, well, they're parking on the street, they're parking all over. And of course, you got people visiting. You know, if people are coming over visiting. My son, when he was very popular, we always had people staying over the house. You know, nobody parked in the street though, because we knew they would be ticketed, and I think some of their cars were ticketed and so on. But this is the letter I received from her. And the other thing is, the reason I bring it up is because in our code, this is where we have to be very careful. We have a definition of a family. And the reason why we have this definition in it is because the Department of State Official of General Counsel has a, what I want to call this, not an article, but they basically have case law, several case laws regarding zoning of single family, or in areas where there are single family units where they try to zone it so restrictively with the definition of family to say only a biological unit, and they said no, you can't do that, because if they live as a functioning family, whether they're biological or not, meaning they help pay the rent, they use the same facilities, they use the same, you know, the kitchen, eating place, then they're considered, they constitute as a family. So this is where we got to be very careful. And thankfully our code addresses that. But it also addresses the transient nature of living. So in other words, if we find out and somehow can prove, which is really fun, you probably have to get an affidavit from somebody in order to do this, to take somebody to court if we ever had to do that. Hopefully we don't. We'd have to prove that people are living there for, you know, a week at a time or whatever, like a bed and breakfast or Airbnb, which we're trying to pass too, the code on that. And then we could say, well, you know, you're outside of zoning because, you know, you're not a hotel, you know, this isn't a residential multiple area and so on. So just to be aware of that. So if you get phone calls or something on that, yes, you do. That's it.
So after all that, is your conclusion that nothing that is going on at that particular address that violates any part of the
I have to have a
village
conclusion?
code? Well, I thought, isn't that the point?
Well,
Somebody complained thinking,
Yeah.
so you investigated to see if anything illegal was going on. And so what's your bottom line conclusion?
Well, my bottom line conclusion is based on the letter I received. 2 things. 1, for now I'll take her at her word, but number 2, she knows that she's on notice. 3, I'll drive through and somehow keep an eye on the place to see if there is a transient nature in the living relationship. One of the few ways I can do that is really run the license plates through the police department to find out the names of the individuals. But even then, as we said,
There's only 3 people there.
Yeah, well, no. Oh, okay, here we go. This is Tuesday again. Stop it. Okay. How many? Hang on. As far as we know from what she has said, there are 3 people living there. But what the neighbors are saying is no. There are more than 3 people living there. The people are coming and going, but we don't. The only problem is, as far as I know, it's hearsay until I can prove it. So that's where I am.
Did you write her letter back?
I have not yet. No.
I think that's our next step. We just write a letter reminder of the code. Maybe we'll
Oh, I did. I included the code in there. Yes.
You're right on top of
I'm sorry?
it. You're on top of it.
Yes. More, it's better than Tuesday.
Better than just
Better than Anything else, Don? You're learning well from Jake, though.
Moving on.
No,
Yes,
from you.
moving
You
on.
scared me. It's like, how not to really answer a question. Like, oh, like this and.
Public announcements,
Then you get to the
events,
bottom
I
line,
think
what
the
did
only
you
thing
really
I
just
got
say?
is just to remind everybody, what Gary had mentioned, Saturday, September 10th and 11th, Rec Center,
We'll mention it in our next meeting.
the Garlic
Don't
Fest.
get ahead of yourself.
Next meeting, workshop is August 30th, and village board meeting is September 8th.
Well, I had a question. What's the status on Voco there? How's the progress going?
Yeah.
It's going good. They have a very aggressive schedule. Right now, they're working on the addition part of it, where the coolers are going to go, and an extra staff room and bathroom and so on. They've completely gutted it. What they're working on right now is the air pressure test for the tanks themselves and the tubes and everything, because it's interesting, the way they're built, it's actually fiberglass tubes that feed the fuel lines that go up to the pumps, okay? And it's fiberglass with glue fittings, where you use this particular glue that reacts with the fiberglass and seals it. But when they did it, it was very, very hot, and the glue was setting up too quickly. And so they're going back over and finding where the air leaks are so they can pass, because they have several special inspections that have to take place on the steel, on the concrete, and particularly on this. So as soon as they pass this test, then they'll be filling that in, putting the concrete in, finishing the canopy and the pumps, and then the interior build out. And aggressively, they're saying they want to be done in 2 weeks. I don't see that happening.
I can't imagine.
But they're doing a fine job.
Is there anything that we can do about the parking? I know when we went with the planning board and everything, it was supposed to be only 6 to 8 spaces, but they've got that whole back area for parking.
Well, the planning board, 6 to 8 spaces, what they were talking about in the context of that conversation was we would lose that
Yes.
at the end. They weren't talking about during construction.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, and I've had to remind them to keep that open for the fire trucks to go through the emergency apparatus.
We've had all kinds of complaints from our clients and stuff there.
Oh, I bet.
Because it's no.
And you know what it is? It's the same thing when we were building the fire hall.
Mhm.
And they took up all those spaces. I had people coming in complaining that they got tickets for parking outside of,
Mhm.
the spaces. They said, well, the only reason you got tickets is, number one, you were too close to the entrance, which was, closing up the entrance. And number two, you didn't park in the parking spaces. So.
All right, thank you, Jake. All right. So, we good? Anyone else? We good?
You want to talk about Lincolnshire or anything like that?
No.
Looking good. While I drove through there today,
Okay.
it's looking good.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to ask for a motion to